Super Rugby 2019, the first quarterfinal is an all New Zealand affair. The Highlanders' reward for just scraping into the playoffs is a trip up to Christchurch, which is a pretty mammoth task ahead of them. Crusaders obviously finished first overall, pretty comfortably, and 11 wins, 3 draws, including a cancelled game, which was between both of these teams. So they both end up with 3 draws, but one of them was that cancelled game, and 2 losses to the Crusaders, one to the Chiefs, one to the Waratahs. So it does look like a pretty tough job ahead of the Highlanders, but the fact that it is an all New Zealand affair does add to the spice. The fact that these two teams are both the South Island teams here in New Zealand, again, adds to a bit of the spice. So it should be a pretty fiery game. Expect the players to be pretty invested in this, and I wouldn't expect any of them to leave much out there. They have played once this season, so ordinarily they would play twice. Cancelled game, the one in Christchurch. No, the one in Dunedin. They played in Christchurch in round 9. It was 43-17, so a pretty comfortable win to the Crusaders there. The Highlanders weren't able to get close, as has been the case for a lot of teams visiting Christchurch. Basically, it's a pretty hard place to play, and I think that only gets harder at playoff time. But of all the teams to maybe trouble them, maybe the Highlanders are that team. I will put the teams into the description so you guys can have a look in detail. But for the Crusaders, they're pretty much putting all the guns out there. Big name back you will see is Owen Franks. He is back at tight head, so he's packing alongside Codie, Taylor and Joe Moody. So very much an all black front row. Scott Barrett and Sam Whitelock. That's an all black type 5 now. And then Whetu Douglas, Matt Todd and Kieran Reece. So Douglas is the only guy amongst that 4-pack who is not an all black. So that's pretty intimidating. Into the backs, Bryn, Hall and Mo'unga have been a pretty useful combo this season. They have been switching Hall and Drummond from kind of game to game, but Hall seems to be the man who gets the slight edge. He's just signed a new deal to stay with the Crusaders a bit longer, so that's good news for them. Crotty and Goodhue, all black midfield. George Bridge, Sevu, Reece and David Havili are the back 3. So how many of these guys are not all blacks? Like Sevu, Reece, Bryn, Hall, Whetu Douglas. Yeah. That's a pretty tough looking team, man. The bench, not as many All Blacks there, but a lot of guys who are kind of close in the conversation, and a couple of All Blacks there as well. For the Highlanders, they'll be really boosted by the news that Ben Smith is back and fit for this game, so it may be his final game in a Highlanders jersey, but the fact that they might not have gotten the chance as of a week ago, even if it is a loss, it'll be good for him to have one last hurrah. So he is at fullback. In terms of the forwards, though, it's Dan Lienert-Brown, Liam Coltman, and Tyrell Lomax. So again, you got a couple of All Blacks there, perhaps not the same amount of test caps as the opponents, but still All Blacks. Once you got that cap, you're an All Black. Himapo and Franklin in the locks. Squire, Lynchus, and Luke Whitelock, who was co-captain with Ben Smith, are the back row. They're still a pretty good back row. I'm not saying it's the Crusaders back row, but hey, I don't know if Highlanders fans will be offended by me saying so, but often they do have a team which perhaps doesn't have all the star names, but they often do get the results. So, which is more than I can say for my Blues, that's for sure, who often have the big names and then no results. Aaron Smith and Josh Ioane are 9 and 10, so he is still preferred ahead of Marty Banks, who is on the bench. Walden and Rob Thompson in the midfield. Naholo, Tompkinson and Ben Smith are the back 3. So it's still a pretty useful looking Highlanders side. Although that being said, I mean, Shannon Frizzell's on the bench. He seems to have been on the bench a lot, which is kind of harsh for a guy who's been having such a good season. But it's Crusaders by 14, what the bookies are saying. I honestly have no idea which way this way is going to go. I mean, I obviously think the Crusaders are huge favourites. When I say which way, I'm kind of thinking Crusaders by how much. Sorry, Highlanders fans, it does. I mean, if they could get a win, that would be a massive, massive result. But it just seems very, very unlikely. How many playoff games do the Crusaders lose at home? Yeah, man. But Also, I should say that the Highlanders did beat the Crusaders last season, so it's not like it's that long since they've beaten the Crusaders. A lot of teams haven't beaten them for a lot longer than that. I'm looking at you, my Blues, but that was in Dunedin. So, different story in Christchurch. Jaco Piper is the ref for this one, so it is a neutral ref. I guess that's good news. There is one game, I think, this week, which is not a neutral ref, but hey, it is a neutral ref. We'll see how it goes. The fact that the Crusaders can leave guys like Drummond, Ennor, Jordan Taufua on the bench is pretty ominous. But Taufua up against Frizzell, once they both come on, fresh legs, could be pretty interesting. You guys let me know how you think this one is going to go. Do you give the Highlanders much of a shot, or does it seem like mission impossible for you? I mean, Highlanders should be really happy to make the playoffs. As I said, it was kind of squeaky bum stuff last week, but they managed to just get in there. Crusaders have been safe for a long time, and unless things go awry, they'll be hosting a Super Rugby final. So still can't count those chickens. One game to get done first. You guys let me know how you think it's going to go, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.